Have you ever wondered what it's really like to be part of Germany's ultra-wealthy elite? What we're about to share will transform how you see wealth in one of Europe's most powerful economies. Here are 3 facts that will astound you. In Germany, over 60% of billionaires deliberately avoid public attention and can walk down streets completely unrecognized. Many of Germany's wealthiest families still live in the same towns where their businesses began 100+ years ago. And perhaps most surprisingly, some of Germany's richest individuals continue to shop at discount supermarkets like Aldi and Lidl. But that's just the beginning of what we've uncovered. The world of Germany's super rich is shrouded in a level of privacy that makes it almost invisible to the average person. While American billionaires tweet their daily thoughts and Middle Eastern royalty showcase gold-plated supercars, Germany's economic elite have perfected what locals call stealth wealth, a cultural phenomenon we're about to dissect in unprecedented detail. The deeper we looked, the more we realized. The most fascinating thing about Germany's wealthiest isn't what they flaunt. It's what they deliberately hide. And you won't believe what we discovered behind closed doors. To truly understand Germany's modern wealth culture, we need to journey back to the aftermath of World War II, when the country lay in ruins. As the dust settled on bombed-out factories across the nation, families like the Quants, Henkels, and Bosch weren't fleeing. They were quietly rebuilding. You could almost hear the determined ticking of precision machinery being reassembled piece by piece in makeshift workshops. Take Klaus Mittermeier, whose grandfather started rebuilding their small tool manufacturing business in Bavaria in 1946, often working by candlelight when electricity was rationed. Today, that company supplies specialized components to industries worldwide, with the family's net worth exceeding $3 billion. Yet most Germans have never heard their name. What's astonishing is how this post-war period created a wealth culture dramatically different from other nations. While America celebrated its robber barons and Britain maintained its aristocratic traditions, Germany developed what economists call the hidden champion model. Mid-sized companies achieving global dominance in hyper-specific industries while remaining virtually unknown to the general public. This historical context created a striking contrast. Germany rebuilt itself into Europe's economic powerhouse, while simultaneously developing a wealth culture that views ostentation with deep suspicion. The psychological impact of the country's tumultuous 20th century history, from hyperinflation to political extremism, created a wealthy class that equates publicity not with success, but with vulnerability. But remember that intriguing fact I mentioned at the beginning about billionaires shopping at discount stores. That behavior wasn't born in isolation. It's deeply rooted in this historical context, where even the wealthiest Germans developed an almost pathological aversion to waste and display. You might assume Germany's wealthiest individuals primarily inherit their fortunes, but here's what will surprise you. Nearly 65% of Germany's ultra-wealthy built their empires themselves, a higher proportion than in Britain or France. But they've done it with such deliberate discretion that their success stories remain largely untold. The German wealthy typically fall into 3 distinct categories, each with fascinating characteristics that defy conventional expectations. The Mittelstand dynasty owners. Contrary to what you might expect, many of Germany's wealthiest families don't live in Berlin or Munich, but in small towns you've likely never heard of. The Wirth family, worth over $15 billion from their fastener manufacturing business, still maintains its headquarters in Kunzelsau. Population 15,000. Imagine a family that could buy entire neighborhoods in Manhattan, choosing to remain in a town where the annual highlight is the Summer Wine Festival. These families practice what German sociologists call rootedness capital, where maintaining deep connections to their community isn't just personal, it's a business strategy. The sensory experience of these family businesses is distinctive. Workshop floors that smell of machine oil from equipment running since the 1950s. Meeting rooms where 3 generations of family members still gather around tables made by local craftsmen. The stealth innovators. Then there are Germany's tech and innovation billionaires like the Strungman twins, early investors in BioNTech, or SAP's founding team. What's counterintuitive about these individuals is how they've applied traditional German discretion to modern industries. While their Silicon Valley counterparts purchase Hawaiian Islands and launch themselves into space, Germany's tech billionaires often continue living in the same neighborhoods they did before their wealth explosion. Christian Anger Mayer, a biotech investor worth hundreds of millions, shares that he deliberately drives a mid-range car and avoids ownership symbols that would distinguish him from his non-wealthy friends. In Germany, he explains, we believe true freedom comes from being able to sit in a regular cafe without being recognized as wealthy, the inherited responsibility bearers. The third category involves those who've inherited substantial wealth, but view it through a uniquely German lens of responsibility rather than privilege. Take Alexandra Schörghuber, who inherited a multi-billion euro construction and beer empire. Instead of embracing a jet-set lifestyle, she intensified the company's focus on sustainability while living what her associates describe as a deliberately ordinary life. What's fascinating is how these wealthy heirs often undergo what resembles professional training to handle their inheritance, not just in business skills, but in maintaining the family's tradition of discretion. Young heirs from families like Henkel or Oetker often take their first jobs under pseudonyms, experiencing workplaces without colleagues knowing their true background. But perhaps most surprising is how Germany's wealthiest families track what they call their responsibility metrics alongside financial returns, measuring their company's contributions to local communities, retention of employees, and environmental impact with the same precision they apply to profit margins. If you were to magically teleport to a gathering of Germany's ultra-wealthy, your first reaction might be disappointment. Where are the designer logos? The flashy jewelry, the boastful conversations about recent acquisitions? This isn't what haute wealth is supposed to look like. That's because Germany's super rich have elevated understatement to an art form through what cultural historians call inconspicuous consumption. Walking into the home of a billionaire family in Hamburg's Blankenese district, you might notice the subtle quality of materials. Hand-finished oak floors that feel smooth underfoot, kitchen counters of local stone that cool your fingertips. But nothing screams wealth. The most expensive items are often nearly invisible. Advanced home systems, exceptional insulation, or custom lighting that subtly enhances artwork. Can you imagine a family worth billions serving guests market-bought bread and regional cheese? Rather than imported delicacies, this happens routinely in Germany's wealthiest households, where authentic local experiences are valued above exotic imports. What would surprise you most is their relationship with time, perhaps their most valued currency. While wealth in many cultures buys exemption from waiting, Germany's rich often deliberately participate in ordinary time constraints. Reinhold Wirth, founder of the Wirth Group and worth over 16 billion, was famously spotted waiting patiently in line at a local bakery. When asked why he didn't send staff, he reportedly replied, "How would I know what bread my neighbors prefer if I never stand in line with them?" Have you ever wondered what the super rich talk about in private? Here's where another surprise awaits. Conversations among Germany's wealthy often center around resource efficiency, durability, and practical problem solving, rather than status or acquisition. A yacht isn't discussed in terms of its size, but its fuel efficiency. A vacation property is valued for its integration with local community rather than exclusivity. Perhaps most counterintuitive is their relationship with luxury brands. While Germany produces prestigious automotive brands like Porsche and Mercedes-Benz, many wealthy German industrialists drive mid-range vehicles, often keeping them for 10+ years. The concept of disposable luxury, common in other wealthy circles, is nearly taboo among Germany's traditional moneyed class. But don't misunderstand this restraint as absence of indulgence. The wealthy Germans' luxuries are simply redirected into experiences that engage the senses without display. Private music performances in their homes, where the resonance of string instruments fills meticulously acoustic designed rooms. Garden landscapes designed to change aromatically through the seasons, or custom-made furniture that most visitors wouldn't recognize as exceptional unless they sat in it. What do you think happens when social pressure requires Germany's ultra-wealthy to display their status? How do they navigate this contradiction with their value system? Now we reach the truly fascinating part, the unexpected eccentricities that make Germany's super rich truly unique on the global stage. Prepare to have your assumptions completely overturned. Would you believe that some of Germany's billionaire families maintain dedicated failure museums within their companies? These private exhibitions display their most spectacular product disasters and business mistakes, accessible only to family members and top executives as reminders of humility. Martin Weissmann, whose family controls a multi-billion euro heating systems company, keeps his grandfather's failed prototypes in a private room where family members gather before major decisions. The sensory experience of these spaces is purposefully uncomfortable, the lighting slightly too harsh, the temperature subtly too cool, creating a physical reminder that success is never guaranteed. Even more surprising is the wealth camouflage technique perfected by Germany's ultra-rich. Some wealthy German business people have been known to maintain two distinct wardrobes: impeccably tailored business attire for international meetings, and deliberately ordinary clothing for local community interactions. Suzanne Klatten, BMW heiress worth over 23 billion, reportedly shops at mid-priced department stores for her everyday clothes, with one associate sharing that she can turn her wealth on and off like a switch, depending on context. Perhaps the most counterintuitive tradition among Germany's wealthiest families is what they call reverse inheritance, where family patriarchs and matriarchs expect to receive handmade gifts from younger generations, rather than purchasing luxury items. These gifts aren't valued for their material worth, but for the time investment they represent. The granddaughter of one automotive industry billionaire reportedly spent 6 months learning woodworking to create a chess set for her grandfather's 80th birthday, a gift he displays more prominently than his rare art collection. This connects directly back to Germany's historical relationship with craftsmanship and material quality. Remember our earlier mention of post-war industrial rebuilding? That same value system now expresses itself in the almost spiritual relationship many wealthy Germans have with handcrafted objects and technical precision. One of the most guarded traditions among Germany's ultra-wealthy families is the service sabbatical, where even the wealthiest heirs are expected to spend periods working in ordinary service roles, not as publicized charity gestures, but in genuine anonymity. The heir to a major German retail fortune worked as a nursing assistant for 6 months, sleeping in staff quarters and experiencing the physical fatigue of healthcare work, an experience his family considers more essential to his development than his business degree. Hey, where do Germany's super rich gather when they do socialize? Forget flashy nightclubs or celebrity-filled restaurants. The truly exclusive spaces in Germany are characterized by their complete absence from social media and tourism guides. That most coveted invitation in Germany's wealth circles isn't to a glamorous gala, but to private cultural salons hosted in historic properties along the Wannsee Lake outside Berlin, or within the centuries-old merchant houses of Hamburg's Ulster district. These gatherings combine intellectual discussion with chamber music performances or private viewings of family art collections. The room temperature is kept slightly cooler than comfort would dictate, an old Protestant tradition that keeps conversations intellectually sharp rather than relaxed into frivolity. Germany's wealthy have also redefined exclusivity through what sociologists call access communities, networks based not on displaying wealth, but on exchange of knowledge and connections. The most prestigious example is the Hamburg Commercial Club, whose membership list remains confidential, but is rumored to represent over $300 billion in private wealth. What makes these circles nearly impenetrable isn't money, it's family history, reliability over decades, and adherence to the code of discretion. The contrast with international wealth centers is striking. While Monaco's harbor fills with super yachts, during summer, Germany's wealthy are more likely found at secluded Baltic Sea properties that deliberately maintain a weathered appearance, or at family-owned hunting lodges in Bavaria, where mounted antlers from generations past line timber-beamed, hallways that smell faintly of pine and wood smoke. Even vacation patterns reveal this distinct approach to privilege. Rather than trendy destinations, Germany's wealthiest families often vacation in the same modest locations for generations. Michelin-starred chef Alphonse Schubeck shares that he has prepared private meals for billionaire families in simple mountain huts with spectacular views where the tablecloth might be old, but the conversation is rich. Perhaps most telling is how Germany's ultra-wealthy navigate business relationships. While wealth in many cultures opens direct doors, Germany's rich often prefer access through trusted intermediaries, a system one banker described as relationship triangulation. Direct requests are seen as graceless. Instead, mutual connections make initial suggestions that preserve dignity for all parties, a choreography of influence rather than power. What's particularly fascinating is how this network operates with almost no digital footprint. When we tried researching meeting locations, our investigation hit walls of privacy that would make intelligence agencies envious. As one wealth manager told us, the real conversations about Germany's economic future happen in places you'll never find on Google Maps. As we conclude our exploration of Germany's super-rich, important questions emerge about the sustainability of this distinctive wealth culture. Can this model of discretion survive in the digital age, where privacy becomes increasingly difficult to maintain? Several forces are creating unprecedented challenges. The globalization of Germany's family businesses has exposed the next generation to international wealth cultures with different display norms. Young heirs educated internationally often question whether German restraint remains relevant in global business contexts, where relationship building may involve more visible status signaling. Social media has created new visibility pressures, with some next-generation family members wanting more public profiles while elder generations insist on traditional privacy. This tension is creating what one family business consultant described as the most significant intergenerational conflict in these families, more divisive than disputes over business strategy. Germany's changing demographics and increasing inequality have sparked new questions about the social responsibility of wealth. While previous generations operated in a broadly middle-class society, today's wealthy Germans navigate a more economically divided nation, where their discretion can appear as detachment rather than humility. Perhaps most fundamentally, Germany's Bauer's historical focus on industrial manufacturing faces disruption from digital economies, where visibility and personal branding often drive valuation. Can the hidden champion model survive when algorithms increasingly reward attention rather than quiet excellence? As we reflect on these challenges, the most fascinating aspect of Germany's wealth culture emerges: its adaptive resilience. Throughout Germany's tumultuous history, its wealthy families have survived by evolving their approach while maintaining core values of discretion, quality, and community responsibility. What elements of this distinctive wealth culture could benefit societies worldwide? How might the emphasis on stewardship over ownership, substance over display, and community integration over isolation provide a model for more sustainable wealth? We began by promising three surprising revelations about Germany: super rich, their deliberate anonymity, their regional rootedness, and their unexpected frugality. But perhaps the most important insight is how these characteristics interconnect to create a wealth culture that, despite its imperfections, views economic success as inseparable from social context. What do you find most surprising about Germany's approach to wealth? Have you observed similar values in your own community, or do you see advantages in more visible wealth cultures? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The most valuable insights often emerge from contrasting perspectives, and like Germany's wealthy families themselves, sometimes the most meaningful conversations happen not in viral debates, but in thoughtful exchanges between diverse viewpoints. We look forward to continuing this exploration with you.